All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Ritika from Agorize, and welcome to NCS Next Hack 5G plus AI Expectations from the Next Tech Revolution webinar. The webinar is part of 6 series of 6 special events of NCS Next Hack 2021. On our agenda, we will start with an opening speech by Mr. Dennis Wong, VP 5G Enterprise and Cloud at Singtel, followed by an insightful discussion with our esteemed panelists. We will also have Q&A session in the end, so please feel free to drop your questions on the Q&A box, and we will get back to you at the end of the webinar. All right, Dennis, the floor is yours. I will let you take it from here. Thank you very much.
Hi, afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I'm really glad to be here and to do the opening for this special panel. As we all may know, this panel is part of the webinar series for the Next Hack Innovation Challenge 2021. And for us, we really want to inspire the contestant. What is the next big thing for NCS? What is the next best NCS product, the team to develop it? You know that NCS is currently engaging the industries and the player, how to co-create the solution. So certainly we want the contestant to be enrolled in this challenge. And there's really good prizes. There are $10,000 worth of cash, and you can be part of the incubation program for 3 months. So it is a really exciting program, and I really encourage all of you to join us. And today for the panel, we have a whole host of industry experts as well as practitioners. So, without further ado, I'm just going to quickly introduce them. I think the first one, we have very privileged to have the moderator, Mr. Ong Jinju from, Garuda Robotics. He is the co-founder and the CTO of Garuda Robotics. And one of his, kind of like a contribution as he is the first one who developed the first connected urban airspace management ecosystem for unmanned aircraft. How exciting that is. And of course, he is also one of the outspoken supporters for using telecom infrastructure for safe integration of drones in the national airspace. And next, we do have Mr. Kenichi Yoshida-san. He is the VAVP and the Chief Business Officer of SoftBank Robotics. And as what Yoshida-san has mentioned earlier, he is looking on the business side of this robotics, and certainly robotics is going to be playing a big key part in the next revolution. Certainly, we also have Ivan. Ivan is the Chief Strategy Officer of Huawei International, and Singapore. And prior to taking up this role, Ivan was actually the business transformation channel person that's doing all the ecosystem transformation for IBM. So he brings forth a whole wealth of experience in terms of ecosystem and transformation as well. And last but not least, Mr. Vincent Wong. Mr. Vincent Wong is the Director of R&D for Continental Automotive. And he is the key leaders in this field in research and innovation activities for autonomous vehicles, autonomous driving, AI, robotics, as well as cybersecurity. And we all know that all these key items that are key area that our experts are good at is certainly going to be the new expectation, from the next tech revolution that we are looking at, the 5G and the AI. Now we know 5G and AI are actually a very lethal combination. 5G and MEC provide the enabling. The AI give it the brain. So with this lethal combination, I am certainly excited to see what comes out of it. The possibility is limitless. So to me, I'm really excited to hear from these panelists what is the expectation from this new revolution. So I hope you will be enjoying the panelists as much as I do, and I'm pretty sure that you guys will get a lot of insights and learning from this. And with that, I'm going to pass the time to Jinju, who is our moderator, and will take us through the panel. Jinju, over to you.
All right, thank you, Dennis. How's everybody? I wish everybody was safe at home. And you do realize that today we are having this call. Right? Normally we have together in a place, but because of the current situation, we're having this call over the internet and so many people dialing in with so many video feeds. telecommunications and the internet is taken for granted, even in these trying times. And building on this is a whole bunch of technologies. And today we're going to focus on two of them. One is a 5G mobile network, right, which is the latest generation after 4G, LTE, after 3G, and so on, where I think to the layman, you would think that they are just very fast network. But what else can 5G do? Same goes to artificial intelligence, right? It's coined in the 1960s, and we've been talking about AI and robotics, and the robot overlords that have all these brains for a while now. What has AI, how has AI fundamentally changed? So to get started today, I'm going to first invite Mr. Ivan Low from Huawei to give us an overview, right? So Ivan, with the deployment of 5G in Singapore, now we're set to penetrate every region by 2026. And I'm sure that because Huawei is deployed everywhere around the world, there might be other places that might be running even faster than Singapore. Is there an urgency for all the enterprises in Singapore to start investing into 5G? And what are the key issues that 5G can solve for the industry in Singapore as well as worldwide? Ivan.
Okay, thank you. Hello. Hi, friends from NCS. Very happy to be here. I saw some people I know who have joined the call as well. We have been working very closely with NCS. So, today I hope we can have some very interesting discussion on 5G together with my fellow panelists and other friends from NCS. Well, we all know by now that, COVID has helped to actually bring forward the digital transformation for most enterprise. And, there was always a joke to say that, in the past, when a lot of the CTO tried to transform, try to justify the digital transformation journey, they always need to answer about ROI and things like that. So I always go to say that, COVID is the best CTO who managed to transform the whole industry. So 5G will actually help to further enhance the transformation process, especially for those that require a faster connectivity speed and ultra low latency and a greater bandwidth. 5G is really just about connecting things everywhere, so that people can measure, understand, and manage things in the real time. So with the new normal that's created by COVID, we will likely see the couple of trends that is coming out in the industry. First of all, the increased dependency on the high-speed internet, right? For remote working, for education, and of course, gaming, etc. Cloud computing, for affordable automation of business process and scalable infra, for the storage and processing of information and services. Of course, AI for decision-making and process automation, for example, chatbots and IoT devices that enable the automation of process and services and deliver a greater, supply chain resiliency. So as per what you observe, the front runner in the enterprise are those who focus on enhancing the user experience. So the priorities have shifted to investing in 5G, right, to develop a smarter and a more innovative economies. So with the arrival of 5G, it's time for enterprise to accelerate their business transformation to remain competitive in today's cyber's economy. So from what I observed, 5G deployment will likely come in two phases, right? In the first phase, you will see that 5G will enable applications of vertical industry, while phase 2 will actually enable a wider range of applications. For example, in the smart healthcare, 5G will help to transform from the remote diagnostic to the in-hospital robot care and remote surgery. In the smart transportation, we will look at, from automated driving to freight operation. So based on the GSMA report that you see, by 2026, we are looking at a market opportunity of more than 1.23 trillion. And within China itself, where my company is more focused on, the 5G to B revenue projection has raised from 1.2 billion in 2020 to 3.3 billion in 2021. So 5G can help the society to advance by opening the cutting edge of improving safety and sustainability. It will help to transform the industry, and the 5G is a foundation for flexible, efficient, and responsible business. One of the key issues that 5G can solve for most of us today is to eliminate the repetitive and dangerous works to machines that have secure access to the digital services. And one of the key challenges that most organizations face today, especially with COVID, is the manpower issue. Whether it's supply chain, etc., whether it's a factory, manpower has become a very big issue. So one of the common use cases around the country initiative, especially in Singapore, is about the smart city and smart home, or even the smart education and the smart healthcare. For enterprise, we will see more urgent needs to leverage on 5G for their journey in several industries, which can include the supply chain and logistics, the smart office, education, and most importantly, that I mentioned a couple of times, to improve the customer experience. Let's look at some of the stats of the 5G use case that has been deployed in China. Let me look at 3 examples. First of all, we look at the product inspection, right? If you compare between a manual product quality inspection versus a 5G plus AI inspection, okay, based on the survey that we have done, it can actually reduce the manpower from 7 pairs to just 1 pair. And the product yield actually increased by 15%. The second very common use case that we see in China is what we call the unmanned 5G smart mining. In the past, you need to have 3 persons to manage 1 truck because you have 3 shifts. Today, 1 person in the aircon room can manage 4 trucks. The cost saving is of up to 10,000 per truck per year. And if you look at smart ports, which is another very focused industry whereby Singapore has also done a trial, with NPA and PSA, one of the things that we could do is to move the people from the hard and dangerous environment to work basically in a comfortable aircon office. From 1 driver to manage 1 crane, today you can have 1 person manage 4 cranes without a driving license, right? And from 1 person, 1 driver per truck to 0% on site. One of the 2 examples is a Ningbo port in China. They have reduced the number of cranes from 550 to just over 50 5G cranes. And the workers reduced from 1,650 to 450. And they have also reduced from 2,200 containers to only 120 5G containers. And the drivers reduced from 6,600 to only 100 drivers. So one of the key things that the 5G can bring to the environment, to all of us, first of all, is a better working environment. It reduces the operation costs, and it increases the production yield. So to answer the earlier question, is there urgency to start investing in the 5G? Well, it depends on the business model and whether you have a relevant problem statement and a use case. And for your info, today we are already starting with our R&D on 6G. And this 6G, as well as a former 5G, the patent, the R&D, something that I want to share with all Singaporeans, that the standard for 5G was actually also deployed in Singapore in our R&D lab based in Science Park. So we've now already starting the R&D for 6G. If you ask me personally, I think it's a time to seriously look at how you can leverage on 5G to build your business case.
Thank you. Thank you, Ivan. Well, that's a very, very good overview, right? So it reminded me of even some of the talks that the chairman of Huawei, in fact, I remember when I attended Mobile World Congress 2 years ago, he said there are 3 different 3Gs, 2 different 4Gs, but there's only 1 5G standard, and Huawei has been taking the lead on that standards. So, and because of that, a lot of industries have benefited, especially robotics, which I myself personally very, very involved in, right? We always thought about robotics as a solution to solve dirty, difficult, dangerous problems, right? So 3D problems that the industry faces. And so we turn our attention now to Kent, who is the kind of the overlord right now of all the robots, right? So Kent from Software Robotics, and Software Robotics, if you all don't know, is the early days they were famous for investing in Pepper, now all these humanoid robots. And latest news I just learned is that they are also now partnering with Kinon delivery robots in China. And where are we going from here in terms of the domain and applications? That's what I would say. The first phase is going to be very much vertically focused, right? So where is the verticals that SoftBank is going into, and how can 5G further leverage these new investments? Ken, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Ken Toshida, Chief Business Officer of SoftBank Robotics. Yes, we SoftBank Robotics provide the service robot for the, let's say, B2B market. Basically, partnering with the SoftBank Vision Fund. So we provided the 2 wheels partnership. So SoftBank Vision Fund, as a VC, invest the portfolio company, but SoftBank Robotics will provide the global go-to-market support for those portfolio company, especially robotics company. So currently we are focusing on the 3 verticals. One is the facility management industry. We provide a professional floor care robot with. We invest the Brain Corporation, which is the US-based navigation OS for the cleaning robot. Second focus is the, already mentioned that it's a tray delivery robot for the F&B restaurant industry. And we just launched the Singapore Kion last week. So Kion is our portfolio company invested from the Vision Fund. And third focus is the logistics. We invested the AutoStore and the Berkshire Grey. Both of the two are the robotics automation solutions for the warehouse, logistics. So, and invested by SoftBank Vision Fund. So those three are more like our focus, but a current focus. So let's say we can divide into the robotics market into three categories. We usually call face, feet, and hand. And face means more like a customer interaction, like a paper. So, we can replace the human job. They are using their face, like customer interaction, customer services, receptionist, that type of work can be replaced by paper type of the robot. Second thing is the feet, which is mobility. So cleaning robot, a tray delivery robot, that's more like people is doing those jobs by their feet. But if we can provide a mobility robot, we can replace. So that's the second category. Third category is more like a hand. So Berkshire Grey is a good example. They are providing the logistics robot arm to pick the goods for the e-commerce. And that is used for the, a lot of the e-commerce company, logistics company in the US. So, there are basically three categories, but we believe that we can start from the mobility feed because it's easier. Technology is already there. So that's the reason why our focus is more like a mobility robot. And then maybe we can go to the face and hand, little bit technically challenging, but maybe 3 or 5 years later, we can do. So those are overview of the robotics market. But basically, 5G is kind of the key solution for the B2B robotics because that the current robot is more like edge computing. So all of the calculation computing have to be done by edge side because of the latency. We cannot increase the risk of the safety so that everything have to be computed by edge side. But you can also understand that we cannot increase the cost of the robot so that the computing power of the robot is limited. But with the 5G network, which means that the no latency, we can use the infinite computing power on the cloud, connected with each robot. So possibility is infinite. So one of the example, current professional robot, they cannot understand what is this object. They can understand the obstacle, but they cannot understand this is chair, this is desk, this is wall. They can all understand that this is the obstacle, based on the rider sensor information, but they cannot recognize the object. So all they can do is just stop. But if we can use the computing power of the cloud network, we can recognize using AI. Okay, this is people, this is escalator, and this is, let's say, wall. So, we can provide the more sophisticated mobility. Like, okay, people is crossing, just wait. And box on the route, so we need to detour. So maybe the action might be different based on the, recognition of the object. But at this moment, just stop. So let's say if we can have the 5G no latency network, we can definitely enhance the capability of the service robot. Another one more thing I like to say is we can also provide the, robot remote control services. At this moment, network bandwidth is limited, so we cannot provide those services. So just sell a robot. But for example, cleaning robot is basically stopped if there is an obstacle. But if the obstacle is, let's say, chair, robot can just push those chair and continue. But at this moment, robot stop. So people have to go and reboot the robot, and that's cost something. So what we like to provide is let's say 90% job should be done by robot, but 10% we're going to provide a human support. So if robot is stuck, people can remotely monitor the situation and maybe control the robot to push the chair and then solve the issue. And you don't have to send the people to fix those things. That things can be done only with 5G. So let's say 5G type of the network is kind of the next generation of the robot service we can consider. So that's the maybe overview of the meaning for the 5G meaning for the robot industry.
Right, wonderful, Ken. So this is the first time I hear you make it so simple, right? The face, the feet, the hand, this, in our case, the wings, right? So
yes, you're right.
so how we, because a lot of robots are purpose built, right? We are not yet building general purpose robot, but even so, even if you build a feet robot, you can add AI to it, you can add edge compute to it, and allow it to do object recognition rather than detection, and therefore becoming smarter. But it's fantastic. So what I hear from you is that the facilities management, the trade delivery in restaurant, logistics, these are the industries that should already consider 5G and AI because they are already here, and we should try to transition to it. How about, let's move on to Mr. Winston Wong, right, from Continental. Now, Continental is actually, I thought Continental was still a tire company because when I was a kid, I already heard about it. And I know that Continental is actually celebrating 150 years. And because of this forum, I went to read up about Continental and I realized that it's completely transformed now into autonomous vehicle, super advanced technology company. And I'd like to hear from Vincent, right? Where is Continental going? Similarly, right? So what are the key domains, application solutions, and how do you leverage 5G in your investments?
Yeah, thanks, Jinju. So first of all, you're not the only one who thought that Continental is a tire company. You're not wrong. Yeah. So it contributes about 25% of our global sales, the tire business. But actually, 75% is coming from software and electronics. Yeah. So basically, Continental Automotive, we spend a lot of R&D and we produce a lot of sensors, computers that goes into modern vehicles. So that's our core business, yeah. And this topic is then very relevant for today's discussions because as we know today, the modern cars, they are getting more smart, yeah, more smart, more safe, and more efficient. So all this are actually powered by different sensors, and engine controls. And Continental being the mobility companies, we keep on looking for technology, to help all these cars be safer and smarter, And I would say right now we're kind of like a tipping point because with 5G coming into the picture, we can actually speed up this whole area. One example, connectivity. Yeah, 5G is about connectivity. It connects the sensors to the backend, to the backend to the cloud, and then you have AI to process it. So in the area of autonomous driving, so Conti has done a lot of research and we did many trials. So in the area of autonomous driving, in the area of level 4 and 5, where you do not really have a driver, in that sense, this 5G enables the vehicle to talk, to connect and to the infrastructure. So the term we use is V2X, vehicle to anything, vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to infrastructure. So with the current LTE, setup, we can still communicate, but with this low latency, actually enables the connectivity to be much faster. And that means the vehicle is able to sense the surrounding much faster because it's reading in sensors information from the next vehicle, from the next two vehicle in front, from the traffic light, from the infrastructure. So basically 5G provides all these exciting opportunities for the modern vehicles to be smarter. So from that perspective, in the mobility domain, there's many exciting opportunities that raise up, and of course, all these opportunities coming from tech will result in business as well.
All right, cool. Thank you, Vincent. So in the sense that Continental is still going on its charter on mobility, potentially for another 150 years, but in this case, very much focused on the autonomous vehicle. So it might be very much the case that my next car, I don't have to drive it anymore. The car will be driving me, right? So these are, I think, some of the domains, but I'm sure it's not limited to this. So we'll come back to this a bit later. I think one of the concerns that a lot of people are having, right, in the audience as well as around the world is, what are the exact challenges that we face? Now, we went through several cycles. If you live long enough, you go from 2G to 3G to 4G and so on. I still remember my days when I was very young at the time and was helping IDEA roll out fiber broadband. I was asked this question, right? What is the challenges that we will face? How would people accept the broadband? And as a young kid, I didn't understand. I said, you give me 1 gigabit, I will use 1 gigabit. What's the problem? Right? So, but then now I understand that when we implement these things into enterprises, into B2B kind of environment to governments, it's not so simple to kind of yank out your 4G investment and just put in 5G. Right. So let's talk more about this implementation details, right? And we come back to Mr. Ivan Low, right? So can you share with us what are some of the challenges that enterprises will face when they roll out 5G solution, right? And is 5G the only solution available to support these digital transformation? And what are your views on that? Okay.
Right. There are many AI solutions that will require certain kind of network capabilities. For example, you will need a high uplink, a low latency, sizing, positioning, security, reliability. These are all the combination of the network capability that you need to support some of the AI solutions. While 5G actually provide all this to support your AI initiative, it also depends on the 5G readiness in your country. Because 5G is not just about the technology or the network itself, right? It actually requires multiple technology and the whole ecosystem to work together. So one of the key strategies that we need to first identify is the problem statement and how 5G technology can be applied. So as a result, you can see that Singapore is running a couple of trials, for example, in the maritime sector, in MPA and PSA to test, for example, the AGV, the automated guided vehicle. There are also other trials on autonomous mobile robots in the Jurong Innovation District, And most of the early adopters of these 5G trials, they're actually very happy with the 5G speeds, but they're expecting actually more innovations. So this is something that, you need to find a practical needs and you need to focus on the right industry, right? And one of the things that you need the most is you need to build a business model. Because for enterprise, you need to consider about what is the flexible offering design and what is a sustainable charging model. So within Singapore itself, if you look at the IMDA strategy, they actually identify 6 strategic clusters where they believe that 5G will bear the most potential. One is the maritime operation, the urban mobility, the smart estate, the industrial 4.0, the consumer applications, and the government applications. So the key thing about 5G in Singapore is that, it's planned and managed uniformly by the national authorities based on licensed spectrum resource. For outdoor coverage, the signal interference for 5G is usually quite small, so 5G is a feasible solution. But when you look at indoor coverage, however, the high frequency signal used by 5G, they are extremely prone to interference. As a result, 5G design in the indoor environment require a very complex network planning. And the transition to the 5G network actually requires devices that can support it. So currently, all the 5G devices that do not have this capability, it will immediately become obsolete. And for the 5G network to function properly, it will require a whole ambitious investment in the infrastructure to increase the bandwidth, to expand the coverage, and that's not cheap. Based on the Singapore AI strategy, to improve its innovation capabilities, Singapore is ramping up its 5G deployment. And if you look at the news, the current plan is cover, half the island by the end of 2022. And the coverage will envelope the whole island by the end of 2025. So it will still take a while for 5G to completely cover the whole Singapore. And of course, there'll always be risks in security, in data handling concern and things like that, right? So for enterprise that may not be ready for 5G right now, okay, one alternative that you can consider, of course, is Wi-Fi 6. People always compare 5G to 4G. Similarly, Wi-Fi 6 to Wi-Fi 5, right? And and usually the key difference of how people complement between 5G and Wi-Fi 6 is that, Wi-Fi 6 is actually mainly an alternative solutions that enterprise are considering for indoor coverage. Because it outdoes 5G for its easier deployment and maintenance in the indoor coverage scenario. And upgrading from Wi-Fi 5 to Wi-Fi 6 terminal is just simply require the chips upgrade. And the portable terminals can quickly support Wi-Fi 6 through the PCIe cards, accelerating development of the entire industry. But the evolution from the non-5G terminal to 5G terminals, on the other hand, involve the product redesign and increase the system complexity at a cost. So in any case, Wi-Fi 6 are built based on the similar R&D technology for 5G. So, Wi-Fi 6 can really comprehend 5G in the overall transformation solutions. There are many articles online that you can search that mention about, whether 5G or Wi-Fi 6, but I would recommend that for any enterprise to also understand how these two can complement each other. It's not a matter of whether Wi-Fi 6 or 5G, but it's a matter of how you can leverage on both together.
Right. So Wi-Fi 6 for those, I guess, yeah, as Mr. Ivan said, like, so you can just search the internet and just type in 5G versus Wi-Fi 6. I realize that there's thousands of articles already comparing them. So you can get those details there. I guess to summarize what you said, Ivan, is that it is not about whether there is going to be one day they suddenly switch over to 5G, right? It is a digital transformation, which is a process. It will take some time for you to mature, and there are certain intermediate steps that you could take to invest, and that's the part that even ourselves, it caught us off guard, because when we were trying to switch over all our CP, because we manufacture drones, so all our CP devices are originally based on 4G, and when we have to switch over to 5G, we realized that we don't know who produces it, we don't know when is it available, and so on. It was quite a bit of chase 2 years ago when we got started at 5G. The market is a lot more mature now. There's a lot more offered equipment manufacturers for 5G modems, and that allowed us to continue our innovations. But it doesn't mean that I have to roll out the 5G today to reap all the benefits. We can already start, for example, working with the NEC side of things to make sure that our code goes into the edge compute and then leverage parts of the 5G as we move along. Right, so that's what I understand. Okay, so let's switch over to Ken again. Similar question, right? Which is, what do you think are the challenges when we kind of roll out 5G, especially to the robotics scene? And what kind of solutions would you recommend corporations to start building on 5G now? Right, it is not just the question of like what domain in this case, but which platform should we start moving on towards in 5G, and what would the roadmap be like if you are somewhat of the robotics related or hardware related company moving towards, say, a full coverage kind of situation in 2026? Ken, over to you.
Okay. I'm not sure that this is the direct answer to your questions, but the 5G is just a small one piece of the entire digital transformation. Rather, we can say robot with 5G is still very small one piece of the digital transformation. So the most important things, or let's say biggest challenge, is the change management using the new technology like 5G. So example, let me show you the example. So usually when we introduce the floor care robot to the janitor, janitor usually said some kind of excuse like, okay, floor care quality by robot is worse than human quality. So that's the normal excuse. So usually we need to do the scientific ATP test on the floor that can measure the number of the microorganisms, including the virus, on the floor. And we need to prove that the robot cleaning is much better than the human greeting in terms of quality. So, I mean, we need to change the behavior of the people, or let's say mindset of the people. New technology is much better than the, how to say, original one. And people should focus more on the value-added task rather than the, how to say, machine can do the, low value-added task. So that kind of thing. So maybe what we are doing is not just selling the robot, but providing, how to say, digital transformation project service with the client. So basically, there is some kind of the best practice of the step of the digital transformation. I mean, 5 steps. And first step is to define the business objective. And step 2 is to analyze the current human operation. And step 3 is to design the future optimal operation using robot 5G, new technology AI. And step 4 is to drive the changes. And step 5 is to stabilize the new operation. So, I mean, it's more like a change management project, with the client. So we have the, how to say, customer success team to work with the client, and especially dedicated to the service robot. But let's say, technology is very important, but on the other side, we have to understand that the importance of the, how to say, change management and leveraging new technology and to design the new business process. So that is the very important part.
Right. So if you turn around and say the same thing in other words, right? I think now is not the time to say, okay, let me compare 3 products that are 5G ready, right? It should be, what is my problem that I'm facing today, right? And from there, we design the solution together before we get to the point where we can say, okay, let's decide what products to buy or what 5G technology to develop, right? So thank you very much for that. Right, Vincent, how about you? Do you have any advice for any enterprises who is going through this whole 5G transformation, AI transformation? What are the challenges they will face, and what kind of solutions they'll be building?
Yes, so maybe I share with the friends out there. So when my company does a kind of 5G rollout, we test it on vehicles. The use case was to localize the vehicles, and it was really outdoor on public roads. And what we found out is it's not easy. First challenge, the compatibility of devices. So it doesn't mean every phone will work with any network. That's first problem we face. Yeah. So the phone must really work with the network. So we have to sort out the hardware issue. And also the coverage, so it's outdoor. When we move from cell to cell, there was a little handover issue. So a lot of teething things that needs to be sorted out. If we want to use 5G for really precise positioning topics, probably can when you do the outdoor robotics, you have similar issue, similar use case. So in that case, the company has to really plan in extra resources and work with the telcos. That's one. With the telcos and work with the suppliers of the modem, of the phones. So this is what we did. So we have to work with really this tripartite to get all these teething issues sorted out so that we can really get the right data into the vehicle. So that's my own personal experience. And I can also conclude with Ken, the change management is not so straightforward. We are not there yet, but I would say don't give up because the end goal is sweet. So we should the whole industry should push forward. The more players and more companies that comes together, I think life will be easy for all of us.
Right. So which brings to the need for an ecosystem, right? So the telco have to put in certain infrastructure, the mobility people put in certain infrastructure, and so on. So thank you all for this input. I think we are now about time because I'm getting a bunch of questions from the audience. So I want to switch over to the audience questions first before we come back to kind of round this thing up. Some of the audience questions are pretty advanced. So I'm opening up the floor to any one of you who want to take this, right? So the first one I'm going to take is this. How is the state of progression for incorporating GAN-based data processing and neural networks for communication through the 5G environment? Is anybody familiar with GAN-based data processing and neural networks? Do you want to take this? The generative adversarial networking, is it? I think no one's very familiar with this. Evan, do you know anything about it? Or maybe let me...
I do know it's GAN. I do know it's GAN, but I'm not, I mean, to be honest, I'm not familiar with GAN or 5G. I mean, at least I've not come across that yet, to be very honest.
All right. Oh, but in general, like, so what is the state currently on applying, let's say, just in general neural networks, right? So a lot of us are doing, like for myself, we are doing deep learning. So a lot of this requires very powerful GPU, you know, your typical NVIDIA kind of products. Are those powerful GPUs available in the mobile age? And if so, how is that different from maybe the traditional one that you usually host it in, say, data center? If you can share a little bit more about that.
No, I think there are a lot of I mean, within the R&D lab that we have, to be very honest, there's a lot of R&D is still being done on some of these things, you know. For example, we talk about neural network, or even on the other thing that may not be related, but just for sharing is that, you know, I also saw some of the questions asking about technology and things like that. You know, the R&D lab is also exploring things like AI ethics. So there are many things that we are still doing, whether it's in Singapore or whether it's in overseas. But if you specifically talk about all the HPC or all the technology to support, you know, I believe that, you know, today the 5G technology doesn't really require a lot of different technology from what you have, except for maybe, you know, as the evolution of the technology, the chips become faster, you know, the usual trend basically is sufficient to support 5G for now. But of course, you know, if you look at it, it's beyond just CPU and chips. But today, one issue that the environment face with the deployment of 5G, of course, is the chip supply issue globally. You know, so this really will have an impact. But of course, you know, if you look at many countries, they are already more or less ready. Singapore, I do not foresee a big issue because, as mentioned, I do believe that by end of next year, we should see at least half the island already fully populated with the 5G coverage. So I do not see much issue there in Singapore.
All right, cool. Let's move to the next question. This one's one that's kind of close to my heart, cybersecurity. So can the panel share how they envisage security controls can be injected at relevant aspects of robotic control to make sure that only the authorized party can control the unmanned robot? So I get that a lot because we always say that our beyond visual line of sight drones are, you know, controlled from a command center. So technically I can be in, say, China, and then I can fly a drone in Singapore, right? So what kind of controls do we put in? And I open up this question to the floor, especially I think Ken, you might have some inputs on this.
Yep. Yes, that is very, how to say, difficult and important discussion, and it's kind of the chicken and egg discussion. Of course, the robot is very useful, but at the same time, dangerous because of the, you know, cyber security. So all over the country start, you know, discussing the regulation. And for example, Europe, robot regulation is the most strict in the world. And let's say from, I think that the next year, only dual rider robot can be accepted for the Europe because that the, you know, risk is, you know, lower than single rider. So, you know, definitely we cannot, you know, reduce the risk to zero. There is a risk, but the one, you know, important principle is the, how to say, physical control is the more, how to say, important or the more powerful than crowd control. That is a, how to say, principle of the robot. For example, all of the robot has the emergency stop button. Everyone can stop the robot. That power is stronger than the crowd control. Of course, that can be hacked, but basically, as a design, as an original, I mean, everyone can, you know, press the emergency stop button, then robot can stop. So that's the, how to say, current situation. But you know, it's like a, you know, same discussion for the cyber security. There is no final answer yet. but definitely that's going to be the, how to say, key challenge, or a critical issue for the robot adoption.
Right. Do you see, so one of the technologies we are trying right now with Singtel Group, right, in general, is the network slicing technology in part of 5G, right, where we actually have a dedicated command channel that is separated from the rest of the kind of the shared channels. Do you think that would increase the security level, or is this just one of the many things?
Of course. I mean, if you can the layer, several layer, and it's separated from other layer, that's of course the more secure. So everything we can do, we should do to increase the security level.
Right. So if we can create say a private network or a slice in the RF or something, that would increase the security on top of, say, software layers, maybe TLS certificates and all this other software version of doing cybersecurity. Vincent, do you have anything to add to this question? You talk about level 4 and level 5 autonomy, right? So at what point do we transition to level 5? And and that kind of security is also still required, in the sense it's not just to other human beings, but to other robots and other AI.
Correct. So to your question, is still a long way to go, where we really get a level 5 vehicle. But on the security, I mean, for sure, 5G does brings about advancement in adoption, but also opens up a kind of worm, the threats, right? Because you expose vehicles, devices to 5G. So what we do, of course, this authentication, all kinds of it's all governed by the standards that's coming from this ECE. So there's different standards that companies are complying to make sure authentication, softwares, and what you say, all this encryption, things are properly managed before we even send the data over the network.
So in other words, to you, the authentication level is very important, to know who you are and to maybe go into even like biometric or some other more secure authentication methods to know who is the pilot, who is the car. I'm sorry, I keep using the pilot, drivers, and who is the car, and therefore when we connect the two of them, you trust the driver trusts the car trusts the driver, and then the teleoperation can happen, right?
Correct. Okay. So the keys, all these private keys, all these are tools now being put into the industries, to really make sure the right authentication level takes place before any data has been exchanged.
Right. To the audience, just kind of reminder, we still do have some time, and if you do have other questions, just use the Q&A tab in the Zoom link if you are part of the Zoom, or I think on YouTube you can ask the same question as well. So here's a question from our YouTube audience, in fact. For enterprise customers, what enterprise solutions have you tested and prepared for 5G? So I think the question very specifically is asking which solution is kind of 5G ready today if they want to adopt it. Is there anything that you want to share that's open to all three of you? Can buy today. Or is it that, okay.
Can you repeat the question again?
The question is, what are the enterprise solutions that have been tested and prepared for 5G already? So rather than, because I think a lot of us have been hearing that 5G trials are going on everywhere, right? So we're testing and so on. But is there any solution that's already been prepared? And let's say I buy either a robot, a drone, a car, or some other IoT device or something that is already 5G enabled, and we can already use it for enterprise customers.
If you ask me from the perspective of Singapore, to be very honest, I think there are some, but I may not be exactly familiar, because I know that there are some gaming applications that's already available with 5G, and there are also drone solution that's already available. But if you look at beyond Singapore, 5G is already a very common the solution that's deployed across multiple areas, right? I mean, if you look at the different areas of China, for example, the most common one that we've seen is the POPs, the smart POPs. whereby you use a solution to control the planes, where, what with COVID now, right, when all the goods arrive at the port itself, if you do not have enough manpower and things like that, all the goods get stuck on the boat or stuck in the warehouse, so the urgency is quickly to unload the goods, quickly to send out to the owner, right? So with the concern of manpower, actually there are many solutions that roll out on 5G that can automate a lot of this process, because this process is a repetitive process, right? Then the other example that may not be relevant to Singapore is, like I mentioned, the smart mining. One of the most common issue about mining is that it's a very dangerous environment, right? Especially at night, mining it can be done 24 hours. At night, when there's limited lighting, when the area is so dangerous, all these jobs can be replaced by 5G. That means the vehicle can be automated, or rather be controlled by somebody sitting in the aircon room, right? Of course, there'll be other things like, smart education and things like that. There are many of these solutions that's already been rolled out in the other country, right? And of course, we are also working with a lot of partners to see how we can bring some of these solutions out.
Right. So in other words, actually, in every other domain, there's already some form of 5G solution. It might not be like, throughout the market, so you can kind of compare them, but there's definitely at least one implementation that's ready to go for another country to be exported and so on. It's just a matter of just looking it up, or maybe speaking to you if you know where are these deployments. Right. So along the same lines, you talk about dangerous, right? So one thing, of course, is we move the teleoperator use of the 5G connected devices into an aircon room, we call it, right? But there's another question from the audience, which is the opposite problem, which is right now, 5G, we have a typical 3.5 gig, right? High-speed broadband, but we also have the millimeter wave, right? So we go up to the 26 gig, 28 gig. And that is going to be very super short range, super high bandwidth, and pretty much an indoor-based solution. So the question that the audience have is, how valid are concerns for radiation hazard as we adopt 5G? Does anyone want to take up this question?
Maybe I give it a try.
Yes.
Okay. Just to confirm, you can still hear me clearly, right?
I think the one of the audience remarked that your video and audio is out of sync, but I think it's fine. We can all hear you very well.
Is it? Okay. So I think this question is actually quite a common question. In fact, I think there were many surveys that were done, and usually more than 20% of the people being surveyed across multiple countries thinks that there are some danger to the health of 5G. And also interestingly, people start to relate 5G also to things like COVID, for example. I even read article that mentioned that, COVID-19, the vaccine actually contained the 5G microchips. Or even statement to say that, the 5G release is used to cover up the COVID-19 pandemic. So it is, there are a lot of this type of discussions. But, if I look at, from my understanding and from what I've read, from multiple articles, there are many tests that has been done to test whether 5G does create any concern on the health, but the result is not conclusive. In fact, there has been no proven document that actually mentioned that it does create the concern. If I look at one of the report recently from Deloitte, it also mentioned that, it's very unlikely that the radiation from 5G mobile network, or 5G phone can affect the health of any single individual, be it a 5G user or the user of any other generation of mobile phone, right? So, my answer to this is, to be honest, we are also all waiting for any reports on this, but at this point, most of the reports are not conclusive, and there are many reports to claim that it actually does not really have the effect.
Maybe I jump in here, yeah. So I also conclude what Ivan says. If you say officially, if you expect a country to do a report, I have not seen that yet. But from all the small trials, from different ministries or universities, it can somehow shows that, even with this higher frequency, there is no direct harm to the human. Yeah. So from all these trials, so I would say that until further data comes out, what we can say is still part of this safety range. Yeah, so we shouldn't be too concerned about it.
Okay, and we do have about 5 minutes left, and I'm getting good questions. I would like to try this very important one, which I think we have not really addressed, which is the impact of 5G and AI to human, right? A lot, not human, to our jobs, right? So 5G, AI, robotics. I think in general we keep talking about replacing and reducing the manpower, which all the examples that you give in China, 7 men become 1 man, 3 men become 1 man, right? So how is our industry going to ensure that once we have all this infrastructure in place, right, that we can continue to ensure the human harmony in terms of jobs, and what are the skill sets that are required for the workforce in the present and future to adopt to this 5G, AI, and robotics world? Anyone want to take this?
Maybe let me try again. I think today, many organizations, they actually realize that, you can't just buy a digital transformation. You need to invest. It's not about buying technology in it, you see. And it's not just about investing in technology. It's about investing in people, right? So organizations that's moving towards digital transformation, whether it's 5G or not, you need to invest in the effort to let people accept the changes and the new way of working, which is one of the reasons why Singapore government is training up to 25,000 of AI students, right? So, some jobs, yes, you will likely evolve or even disappear, but new jobs will be created as well, right? So that's why we should understand that, investment in technology is not the most important area. It's the investment in people. And the people need to be the real driver for the changes in the organization. The technology will not change the organization. It's the people that will change. So it's a very similar if you look at in the past, when cloud first came up, what happened to all the 20 years ago, 15 years ago, a lot of engineers who has a lot of hardware skills, but then everything moved to cloud. What happened to these people? It's just a matter of transform. The technology transform, the industrial transform, we also need to transform. So my suggestion is that, the company need to plan ahead for this. They need to understand how the people can transform to accept the changes and to take on the new roles.
Right. So transforming in this case means upskilling, right? So learning a slightly different skill set to manage the robots instead of managing the menial job in the past that they used to do, right? It is easily said than done, to be honest. There are people who are in the let's say food delivery, right, or Grab taxi or something, right? So if in the long run, if all this transportation was just replaced by autonomous vehicles, then no one's actually driving for a living, right? So Ken and Vincent, you want to add more to this point?
I would say that we should all take a positive mindset. Yeah. So AI, 5G is there to help the society advance. Yeah. And if you look at Singapore today, we are facing shortage of people, manpower. There's always a shortage of many things. And by adopting 5G technology, actually our people, our workers, actually they would have more jobs to do. I would say in this way. Yeah. From being a operator, they can be a control. Remote control. So there are other opportunities that will open up, in the horizon. The main important thing is the mindset, that our people should be open to take on these new jobs and new roles empowered by AI and 5G.
Right. So complain less and upskill more, right? Okay. Ken, do you have any last words?
Yeah, totally same thing. But yes, definitely we need to change our mindset or our capability from the low value added task. That can be done by machine, robot, 5G, whatever. But we need to more focus on the, only human can do that kind of the job. I mean, so yes, technology shift can drive the how to say capability shift or educational shift, but that's necessary. And as everyone said, a lot of new job. I mean, we are working on the how to say robot, control or robot deployment, robot engineer. A lot of people. We need to educate them for the new capability. So let's say we need to be open-minded for those changes, and that's going to be the happier, right, for everyone.
Right. And I do hope that so this a point from the person who asked this question, that he's thanking everybody for these excellent answers, and I think it's a very important point, because we when we engage not just the customers, right, which is the B2B, B2G customers, but when all these solutions eventually meet the consumers, right, the consumers will be eventually the ones who is going to be hopping to a car that has no drivers, there's going to be going to a place that's primarily being served by robots, or being served by AI, or using devices that are connected by 5G. That acceptance, the public communication, and the public embracing of 5G will also take some time. Even though we have done it before, I think every generation is a new generation, so they will have grown into their own comfort zone, and then have to transform again in the middle of their career, right? So I think every generation, as we go through that, it's incumbent on us, the technology providers who will be creating these technologies, to ensure that these technologies are accessible, and that enterprises and even the public has step-by-step kind of adoption roadmap for them to take them into their embracing, right? So I think that's really what all the time we have, and I really want to thank the panelists, Mr. Ivan Low, Mr. Kent, Mr. Vincent, for this excellent panel. And we do have, I want to check with the organizers, do we have a survey form or something, right? So you can maybe put it up on the, oh yes, it's on the screen, right? So do scan the QR code, and there's more information about the hackathon that you might want to further learn more. And I believe that this is not the end of the conversation, this is the start of the conversation, because this is still we're still at the very starting point of rolling out of 5G and applying a lot of the latest AI onto our mobile edge compute and leveraging a very, very high-speed broadband. I want to conclude again by saying thank you to all the panelists, because your insights and the way that you communicated sometimes a very complex concept and very complex technology in a way that all of us could easily understand. Thank you very much. And to all the audience, thank you for tuning in. We hope to see you in the next session. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.